Here are some quick tips if you are trying to choose a new graphics card. Number one, graphics cards should be abbreviated as GC or VC. The chip that is the processor on the graphics card that is the equivalent of the CPU is called the GPU. So you shouldn't be calling the card the GPU because the GPU is the brains on the card, not the card itself. It makes it confusing when you're trying to discuss both of them in a conversation. That's not really going to help you to choose one, but I just wanted to get that out there because I'm so tired of people saying GPU for GCs. All right, so let's see. If you want a budget card and you're not going to do anything heavy, not going to create stuff with Blender, make an AI, do folding, etc., and you're not going to play very demanding AAA games, buy the Intel Arc and wait for it to improve due to driver improvements. Yeah, the Intel Arc is still really a product that's in process. It's very cheap, but it's also by far the least reliable of the three. And I would only consider it if you're just going to be doing like regular stuff that most people are going to do, like browsing the internet, watching videos, maybe typing up a document or doing an Excel spreadsheet. Well, not Excel necessarily, because there's OpenOffice and LibreOffice and StarOffice and all those other offices that are free. But basically, if you're just going to do simple, low-key stuff, Intel Arc could probably be a really cheap way, or you could buy used older cards because some of them are still really great, except for when Nvidia starts to nerf the functionality of the cards to force you to buy newer cards. They do that by changing the drivers. Number two, if you want the best gaming experience, either Nvidia or AMD. Although some games are optimized for one and other games for the other, if you need to spend less for this purpose, always AMD. Because ultimately AMD is cheaper than Nvidia. And currently the top CPU is actually from AMD. So just to explain a little bit further, when I talk about anything heavy, most games are not heavy. Now, there are some that are very demanding, but the vast majority of them don't push your CPU and your computer to the very limits. When you do things like deep learning for and artificial intelligence, or you're working in Blender doing 3D work, you're doing very intensive other things like CAD drawings and stuff like that, that's going to really push your system hard. Now, there are exceptions to the rule about heavy work, but this is number 4. Sorry, I skipped number 3 for a second here. Yeah, just gonna make you wonder what it is. What's number 3? Tell me now. No. So if you're doing that kind of creative work, I guess I'll call it, with the exception of certain programs like PyTorch, really does better on AMD. But the majority of the time, you should get an Nvidia card. And this is because many people have reported having problems when doing creative work on AMD cards. Is it always a problem? No. Is it probably sometimes because they made some kind of a mistake building their machine? Probably. But in general, Nvidia is better, especially if you're doing AI, because the Nvidia has CUDA cores, CUDA cores, and those are really important for AI and other things where you have to do a lot of simple computations, because a CPU can do lots of complex computations very well, but a GPU, and again, I'm talking about the brains, not the card, a GPU can do a lot of simple calculations much, much faster than a CPU can. So if you need complex computations, the CPU is better. If you need a lot a lot of simple complications being done at the same time, which is what graphics cards do, then you need an Nvidia. So again, heavy duty video editing or CAD or blueprints of any other kind or anything like that, all is best done on Nvidia. And you don't have to go with a commercial grade card for most people anyways. Yeah. So number 5, and I'm still skipping number 3 because I want you to just be stressed out about the fact that I'm skipping number 3. I'm building up the suspense. My name is Alfred Hitchcock. If you've got a card that's 1 generation older than the current one, and you haven't noticed any functionality depreciation, and you don't need a better card, wait another generation or 2 before considering upgrading to a new VC. Graphics card, video card, that's what they are. Number 6, more VRAM or GDDR is always better. In order to make sure your graphics card will be usable for years to come, get one with no less than 12 gigabytes of VRAM. This is important because we're getting to a point where if you're running newer software, less than 12 gigabytes of RAM is going to force your graphics card to resort to stealing RAM space from your regular RAM. Now, if you're running on 8 gigabytes of RAM and you've got an 8 gigabyte graphics card, well, you're going to really struggle. So, I would say, just as a side note, if you're buying RAM for your computer, get no less than 16 gigabytes of RAM, preferably 32 gigabytes. And if you see a future where you need to do a lot of very intense work, maybe opening a lot of programs at the same time, get no less than 64. That was a bonus, a free bonus. And even though I'm withholding number 3, I gave you a bonus to compensate. So number 7, don't forget to look at the number of VRAM chips, the bus speed, and the number of lanes. A higher bus speed, more chips, and more lanes is important. It will determine overall how quickly your GPU can operate. So you may find one that has only got 2 VRAM chips, and it's got lots of space, right, on those VRAM chips. And then you find another one with 4 chips and less total VRAM. The one with 4 chips is going to be a better choice because having only 2 VRAM chips is going to be a bottleneck. All right. Now I'm going to go back to number 3. If ray tracing is important to you, then Nvidia is better. Not a huge amount anymore, but it's better. AMD has been catching up on ray tracing. And I will add one more thing to this. Both brands have a method in which they try to kind of improve the quality of the graphics display. So in Nvidia, it's called DLSS, or Deep Learning Super Sampling, and AMD calls it FSR, Fidelity Super Resolution. And both of them work by creating gameplay frames through a variety of manipulations, including using AI to create frames between the actual frames to smooth things out, and so on and so forth. It's kind of complicated, but basically they're faking it when they use those. So it's kind of like the difference between optical and digital zoom. When you're doing optical zoom, you are literally actually zooming in on something and maintaining the resolution, which is how many, in terms of computers, it's how many pixels are being used. When you're using digital zoom, you are not zooming in on the image, on the object. You are zooming in on the image, which means you are producing an image with less or fewer pixels, which means a grainier image the more you zoom in. So if you have got, say, a really high quality camera, and you've got two options. You can use the digital zoom that's built in, or you can grab a zoom lens. I mean, one of those big ones like the sports reporters use. And you're not sure which one to use. The best choice is always going to be stop and pop that zoom lens on, because if you're taking a photograph of something that's a mile away and you use digital zoom, it's going to look like crap. If you use the optical zoom of the lens, it's going to look great. And so if you use DLSS or FSR, you may or you may not, depending on various factors, including the maximum possible resolution that the game supports, as well as your monitor, as well as your graphics card, and so on and so forth, and how sensitive you are to distortions and graininess and stuff like that, how much you notice that kind of thing. You may or may not notice anything while using DLSS and FSR, or FSR. It's not certain. But I would say if you've got really high quality equipment, you probably won't notice it as much as if you have like lesser equipment. But I'm not an expert on that. I'm not going to go into detail on that. I just wanted to share that little possibility with you. And again, if you are thinking about getting an older generation card, do keep in mind that Nvidia may have done something to the drivers to make that one not function as well as it used to function, because they want you to buy a newer card. They don't want you to hang on to their old cards, because let's be honest, Nvidia is rather greedy. They do a lot of tactics to manipulate their market price and so on. So lack of ethicality and focus on money, greed, and it's irritating. But if you've got lots of money, and Nvidia is usually, but not always, usually the better choice between the three companies. And but AMD is really catching up lately. So again, if you are a gamer or a casual user, any of them is just fine, unless you're doing like really demanding games like AAA games or Minecraft or something like that. In which case I wouldn't go with Intel. Or if you're doing creative work, don't go with Intel. If you're doing creative work, you need to look at specifically what software you're going to use, and probably going to end up with Nvidia, because you may have problems if you use AMD or Intel. Well, most likely you'll definitely have problems if you use Intel, because it's a entry-level card. Okay, so if there are any questions, please put them in the comments or go to a tech forum and ask the experts over there. I am not a graphics card expert. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.